and welcome into the Kevin Mandeville Show, live here on YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. You can subscribe at kevinmandeville.com/newsletter or give the button a smash down below. I've got another guest here on today's program. I'm so happy to welcome in Kimberly Connell, Design and Development Lead from Sercante. Kimberly, welcome into the program.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for doing this. I'm excited to talk about you. I think you have some unique experience on the ESP side of things compared to a lot of us. So definitely interested to get into that. But we always like to kick things off on the program. How did you get involved into the wild world of the web and email if they're sort of different? So what's your backstory?
So I don't really have... I think a lot of people say they have an interesting backstory. And I think the first time I ever really used HTML, CSS was way back when I was in high school. I would make these like stupid web pages that were like band lyrics or like edgy poems I wrote. But of course, like if I wanted to do that, I had to use a free service. So I was like making like these Angel Fire sites. Nice. And you had to use HTML. Like you could, if you're using the free thing, you didn't get any of like the premium builder or anything like that. And honestly, I totally forgot about that. Like when I started getting back into HTML and CSS later on in my life, I'm like, yeah, I remember doing this, but like the reason I was doing it was so different than I never knew that people could do that for a job.
Yeah, MySpace was my sort of gateway mostly. So yeah, that's really cool. And yeah, definitely doing out like every single band, like local band you could possibly think of. Right. Yeah. So that's really cool. So how did you sort of stumble into email in doing email development and design? So
that's kind of an interesting story. I can go like really far back to kind of explain my whole story. Sure. So this is probably the thing that a lot of people don't know about me, but I was actually a teen mom. So I had my oldest when I was a senior in high school, and I had dreams of going to art school. Never in a million years even knew that like web design was a thing I could go into. And I had a school that I really wanted to go to. But after having my oldest, I realized, I should probably like just go to community college and then I'll switch over and go to the school I really want to go to. And I was going for art and design. So I did go to community college, but I ended up dropping out. I was working a full-time retail job. I was taking care of a baby. And after a few years, I was just like, I was only going to school part-time. I was just like, I can't do all of this. Like, it's just way too much. I was falling asleep in art projects at night. And I also had a better job than any of my friends. I was making more money. I had benefits. I had my own store at this point. So I was like, I have to pick like two of these things. Obviously I'm like taking care of a baby. I have to do that. But I worked in retail for a really long time. So that's like really where my background was as far as work experience. And that actually worked really well, having a young child. I was able to take 2 days off during the week. They went to daycare 3 days during the week. And then I had my days off with my kid all day. By the time they got to kindergarten, that story was very different and it became very difficult. So I realized I needed to shift my career path, that like retail was not going to work for me. And at that point I had a second child. So it was getting more and more difficult to like maintain that lifestyle. And that's when I started just looking for a company that I thought I would love and had a really cool culture. And like, that's really how I found email, as weird as that is. Okay. It like I said, it starts way back. Sure. It's weird to kind of tie in like that part of it. But I refused to work somewhere that I wasn't going to be happy. So I took about 6 months. Like I made the decision, like I need to get out of retail. I took about 6 months to like dig around and find a cool place to work. And that's when I came across aWeber. And at this point, I like really was having a hard time finding a cool place to work. So I was on Craigslist, like looking for jobs. And I found this Craigslist listing and I'm like, this place sounds really cool, but I almost don't trust it because it's a Craigslist listing.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, how does this place exist near me? So I actually went there as just a customer support representative. Like I used my retail background and the customer service skills I had to get a job in their customer service department. So that's kind of like my introduction to email, because they're an ESP. I had to kind of learn the ins and outs of the world of email and how to support our customers. And I had to know our product inside and out. And I had to understand email marketing. very well in order to support our customers. So I very quickly realized when I started there that our customers were not getting the support they needed in the actual like email design development part of it.
Right.
And we were kind of trained like, they're on their own with this. We don't really do HTML, CSS support, mainly because all of the people on our team didn't have that background. I didn't have that background really. Like I didn't know how to help them. But being a customer service person, it killed me to tell somebody that I could not help them. And that, and I also had this design kind of creative background and I like really wanted to make people's stuff look better. So when they would call and say like, this doesn't look right, Outlook's making it look terrible, I like needed to fix it for them. So weird story, but like, that's really how I got into email.
No, well, that's really fascinating, really cool. And I mean, major props. I mean, my biggest hardship in life has probably been battling Outlook, which I'm sure pales in comparison to having to raise an entire family. So that's awesome. But I think it's interesting how it seems like not only did you have this love of design, but how customer support really led you down this path as well. I mean, that's pretty interesting. Your need to wanting to help people, it led you down this email path.
Yeah,
that's really unique. So what ESP was this that you were working at?
I was working at aWeber.
aWeber, cool. And so what was yours, and you spent quite a while there. So what was your evolution of what you worked on while you were at aWeber?
Yeah, so like I said, I started as a customer service representative. And when I realized that we really had this need for supporting our customers with their emails, there was a couple of other women on the team at the time that kind of felt the same way. So they just kind of were like, okay, like, do it, like figure it out. Like you guys can be like your own little team. And it was tough for a while because we didn't have like the time in our day to dedicate to that. We were literally like fixing emails in between phone calls or like while we were on phone calls, telling people we'd get back to them. We had a design team who would make like some of the email templates and stuff. And they were like super delighted that we were interested in this because they wanted nothing to do with the emails. Like they wanted to do the cool stuff on the website, whatever. So they gave us whatever little bits of knowledge they had and we're just like, run with it, like do whatever you want. So like that kind of took it off their plates because they didn't have people coming to them, like asking weird questions. They were now coming to us. So we spent about 2 years, kind of just like documenting, like, I helped this person with this. Like if it had anything to do with email design development, we just had this ongoing spreadsheet of like, I spent this much time doing X thing for this person, and then kind of used that as a way to present like, we need an actual team here that's dedicated to doing this. So we basically started this little like agency that worked within our customer service department. And that was like the first major step into like how my career developed as a email designer developer.
Well, that's really cool. That's definitely one way to get buy-in internally, right? That's a way to where you start proving your case. So that's a really cool thing that you did there.
Yeah.
So what's it like working for, aWeber is a pretty large ESP in the space. What's it like having to sort of build templates for those clients or for that templating system? What kind of considerations do you have with that, which may differ or vary if you're working for an individual brand, let's say?
Yeah, so it's interesting because especially because a lot of our customers weren't marketers, they didn't know what they were asking for, so we really had to guide them through that. And when I was working more on like the customer service side of things, it was almost easier because I could manipulate our templating language and stuff like that in ways that, I could say to someone like, this is called like this element, but we're going to use it in this way to do the thing that you want. So it's kind of cool that like I could kind of like hack like our system a little bit to get people things that they really wanted to use. But then when I moved more onto the marketing design side of things, that became more difficult because then I was managing our whole library of templates, our customer facing templates. And, we already know email is limiting enough, right? So now I have this system that's also limiting me because I need to be able to make templates that make sense to a whole variety of different people. And they need to be usable and they need to make sense with the way that our templating language was set up, which was also super limiting. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's curious, and it's something to where, I mean, I haven't ever embarked upon working for this giant templating library of something like an ESP that's going to be then used by thousands, millions, whatever of users. So like that problem always fascinates me for people and how they go about and solving it. So what would you say were some of the like big lessons? We're going to transition to what you're working on now next, but what were some of your big takeaways of your experience at aWeber?
Well, I mean, takeaways. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Or like learning experiences, email, or just in general, because I know that was like a big part of your career.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think mostly everything I know like came from my experiences there. Obviously, I've learned from the community and outside, but I realized honestly that I could build a career off of this, and I had to push for that, and it took a long time to like really get the buy-in. Like I said, even when we were doing that work initially to create that team in our customer service department, it took us 2 years to do that. So I think one of the things that I learned was, I have to have some patience, but I also have to like not undersell myself, and I have to be competent, which is not one of my strong points. But I really had to like feel like, this is important. I had to basically teach them too, we were an email company, but this part of it is what people see. This is what our customers are ultimately sending out, and what their customers are seeing. This is important. And I think one of the biggest things I learned was that was a good thing to be concerned about, because it helps me build my career.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think I sort of had a similar-ish experience with Litmus, to where when I was working at Litmus, I joined with no intention of ever really working on email or having to spend a lot of time on it. And I even said at one point to Justina, I was like, at some point, I hope you just hire some email person so I don't have to worry about it. Obviously, I went down a completely different path, but that experience led me to, it was a transformative experience to see, yes, this is a real thing. This is valuable. Email is a necessary part of businesses and organizations and what they do. It's a critical, integral part. So yeah, that story, I think, highlights that perfectly. So I'd love to talk more about, because there isn't sort of a lot online or even it's not well known, but where are you working now, and like, what is it? What are y'all doing over there? I'd love to know what's up.
So I'm working for a consultant agency called Circonte, and I actually started doing just contracting work with them back in the summertime, maybe like June or July. So I was doing that part-time while I was still working at aWeber. But we basically focus on Pardot implementations for our clients, and we take on a lot of different clients across all different industries, which is really fun from my perspective, because, I get to see like some of the things that you would just never imagine would need to be a business. Their businesses, and you're like, wow, I never thought about, how this worked. So that's really cool. But I love the people I work with, and we're basically dead set on just taking on super challenging projects. And we want to be able to take on the things that other people aren't taking on. So it's been really fun. We're very busy. We're very small still and growing, and we have a lot of clients. So
that's interesting. So how big is the team?
We have about 10 full-time people right now and some part-time contractors.
Okay. And you're actually looking for a few more roles at the moment
We are.
Right? Okay.
We're basically always looking for people. We have a few full-time roles open right now, and always looking for consultants to pick up, things here and there, which also me picking up consulting work was obviously a life-changing decision, because it was something I really hadn't done before. Again, confidence issues. I really struggled with being am I good enough to be putting myself out there like this? And I think a lot of people struggle with that. Turns out yes, we are. And we learn a lot from doing it, which was part of why I took that on. So yeah, if people are looking for part-time work, but they're kind of scared to take it on, do it. And let us know, because we definitely are interested in talking to you about it.
And what's the website people can go to look up this information?
So right now, this is a fun story. So Circonte does not have a website yet, because we are so busy.
And I wanted to talk about it.
I was tasked with doing this. We're so busy. There's just not time. We are so focused on our customers and our clients that there's just not time. But we do have, or Andrea, who runs the company, she has a blog called Spot for Pardot, and you can find information there about our company.
Okay, cool. And that'll be in the links down below, show notes, so you can check that out. So you specialize in Pardot implementation, which is really interesting, and I'm familiar with it because that's what we used at Litmus, at least when I was there. So like what do you sort of specialize in when you're working with clients at the agency? Like, are you doing everything front to end with the program? Are you focusing on certain components of email? Like what are you specializing in?
So I'm doing most of the building of emails. I do some design work. I also do landing pages and landing page designs and things like that. I'm also trying to also balance doing like our internal kind of marketing stuff, which again, like kind of gets pushed to the side because we're not the most important. Our clients are the most important. So I basically am doing all kinds of stuff right now. Cool.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So I'd love to dive into some of your workflow now. Talk a bit about what that looks like today. So, like, what editor are you using? What's your process for building, developing, deploying emails? I'd love to just dig into like what that looks like from beginning to end.
Yeah. So right now, I am relatively new to our company, and I have like a very manual process right now, which doesn't feel super great. I use VS Code for my editor. I made the switch when I switched jobs. I was on Sublime before that, but figured it was a good time to transition over. But right now, everything's very manual because I'm trying to evaluate like the best way to implement a system that will be beneficial for us moving forward. And it can be really time consuming to get something set up, but I want to make sure I do it the right way. So I work with a lot of people who can like kind of hack into like, make changes to emails, but I don't want to make it impossible for them to be able to use whatever it is I decide to build.
Gotcha.
So whether that becomes like a design system or some sort of framework, I'm not really sure what that looks like yet. I'm still trying to figure that out. Yeah.
So VS Code is like the hot new editor nowadays. So what do you love about VS Code, and why has it been such a great editor for you?
They have a lot of really good features, and like honestly, I don't have a super great answer to that because again, like I'm doing like a lot of manual work right now.
Sure.
I know that they have like some cool features with like being able to bookmark snippets of code and things like that, but I really haven't like gotten too deep into using it. I do like that I can have a terminal right in my editor. That's pretty nice. I do back everything up to a GitHub repo that I have. So it's nice kind of having everything all in one place. I used to have like things scattered all over my window. So that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So how are you testing your emails?
So I test my emails in Email on Acid. I also do as many live tests as I can in certain circumstances, making sure that, it's really doing what I want it to. But for the most part, I'm using Email on Acid.
Gotcha. For those live tests, how are you sending tests? Are you sending it out of Pardot, or are you using some other type of tool?
Yep, I send it right through Pardot.
Yeah. And do you have do you have a device lab accessible if you're testing local devices, or no? Just like
I have
local?
my own devices that I use. So
Gotcha.
I have a few in the house, so I can test a few different places. But for the most part, the major testing is done Email on Acid.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm the same way. I use Litmus, but I only have a few devices on hand myself. It covers, if you have an iPhone, an iPad, and Android, you're pretty much covered for pretty much everything. So, and so what is the process like with, you have clients, so you're doing some client work. So how are you managing that communication, the approval process, sort of that workflow for emails moving from the beginning to reviewing, approving, and then deploying and execution?
That's a good question. So I am very fortunate to work with a lot of very awesome project managers who really are the ones that are passing the work off to me. Every once in a while, I will get on a client call with people, we'll review something that I've created. But for the most part, like I am just getting the work passed to me and then I'm passing it back to that project manager and they handle everything, which I love.
That's awesome. So you can stay heads down, siloed in your role. You don't have to worry about all the stuff you don't worry about.
Yep. And they do a good job of making sure that, like, you know, I'm not getting bombarded. They'll compile all of the questions together and be like, okay, let me straighten this out so that it's like nice and packaged up and it's in a format that like you can actually work with it instead of you're trying to figure out exactly what it means. So that's very nice.
Yeah. And so are you working off of some type of creative brief or document? I'm just curious, when things sort of get handed or passed down to you, like what are you sort of working off of?
It depends from client to client. And some clients, you know, will pass over their style guide and they'll send over some examples. And some people were really like recreating emails for them, or they're, you know, we're migrating over from another service. And sometimes I'll make suggestions as to like how to find things better. But it really varies across the board. Different clients have different expectations as to how you're going to be meeting their brand standards. Some of them really don't have brand standards. So it really just depends.
Yeah. And what is a typical, I mean, it probably varies depending on the type of email, but what kind of production times does your team typically have for different kinds of emails? I mean, from like start to inception, I'm just curious, like when you're working with clients, what does that look like?
Yeah, so that kind of depends too. Usually for me, when I'm working on building out an email, it's especially if we're doing multiple, the big thing is getting like one of them done usually. And then after that, I can just like bang out the other ones, because usually it's just a matter of switching out components and making enough of those components available for them. But usually we have like a few days like time where we're actually doing the work on their emails. So yeah, it's usually a few days up to maybe a week or so. Cool.
So I know you had mentioned, you know, it's very lean right now. So you're kind of running by the seat of your pants a little bit. But what would you say right now with either your own individual design development workflow or maybe as a team? Like, what do you think is the one thing you'd like to try to optimize for, or is like just a big pain point and big challenge point right now that you feel?
I think the biggest thing that we could do is have some sort of component library and kind of standardize the way that we're building our emails. I know I just watched your episode with Ted, and when I started, one of the other women that I work with was like, I've been using this Cerberus template. And I was like, cool, like I've worked with this before too. I'm just going to work with this, which has been awesome because it was a great way for me to just kind of pick up something that somebody else was already familiar with. But I think that the biggest thing for us would be kind of like creating our own boilerplate and having like some sort of library for people to be able to just pick and choose from, because that would take some of the work off of my plate too, in a lot of situations, because a lot of the emails we're building are pretty consistent in terms of like what people expect to be inside of it, with like a few variances. So if we could get like that solid system built out, I think that would be huge. Yeah, that's awesome. So so check out Sercante / the spot for Pardot, I guess, if you need any awesome work there or want to work with the awesome team there. That sounds really interesting, really fun. Want to get into a few of your side projects that have sort of gone popular in the community, talk about some volunteer work and more. I just want to take a quick second, let everybody know the show sponsored by Email Tees, which is official apparel for email geeks. So you can rock your email geekdom out into the world. I've got my nice winter hat on here with my emblem. You can see some t-shirts in the background. We just launched the Valentine collection. So love-inspired designs, everything from t-shirts, long sleeves, hoodies, mugs, hats, socks. We've got you covered head to toe for the most part. So yeah, just support this program. I can do more shows like this, have more guests on, continue to do more shows, more blogs, content. I'm going to be sponsoring an upcoming meetup in Boston. So I'm trying to use the funds from Email Tees to fund other cool email projects. So appreciate all your support. Just go to emailtees.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at emailtees. All right, Kimberly, let's get into some of your side projects that you've worked on, which have been really cool. One that you presented on at Litmus Live a few years ago was part of the hack session was this really cool duotone image filter. And I'm actually going to bring it up on my screen now so that viewers at home can watch it. Talk to me a bit about this tool. So the duotoner was basically born out of my empathetic, tendencies. I made this template that we were putting in our customer facing template gallery, and the design for it, the placeholder images had these cool, duotoned images in them. And I realized that that was going to become an issue for our customers, because a lot of our customers are one person operations, and they don't have all of the resources that a bigger company would have. So I was I love the way this template looks. I don't like the way that it looks really with the just regular images. I want to keep this look and feel to it. But I'm it would be really unfair for me to make this template and not give people an easy way to create images that look similar. So it basically just sprung out of this, what if we had this really easy tool that people could just get to through the template to make their images look like this. So that's really how the duotoner was born, was just this kind of I want the design to look like this, but I also want our customers to be able to make it be consistent with the design vision that I had for this template.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so was this something that you did on your own time, on company time? How did the development sort of come about for it?
Yeah, it was kind of both, but it wasn't really something that was planned into my sprint. It was if I get my other work done, then I can sit in a room and kind of hack away at this. And luckily, I worked with Chris Vasquez, who, if anyone knows him, he is the king of crazy, wacky side projects.
Yeah.
So if you present to him, I have this weird idea, he's I love it. Let's do it. And he will make sure that you make the time to do these cool, weird things. So I luckily was working with him at the time, and we kind of just worked on it together and held each other accountable for getting our parts of the project done.
Yeah, that's really cool. And Chris, I definitely need to have Chris on the program at some time, talk about, his, would you rather is a fun email that he does. And he's got a bunch of fun stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really cool. Again, just sort of with the customer support driving your email experience. I love how much of a theme and how much of a part of your story that is. Was there, I don't know, anything sort of interesting about learning from that development, or because I'm always jealous too. I mean, I've never taken the time to learn sort of the front end side of things. I'm strictly HTML and CSS. I've never gotten into JS to do tools like this. Was there any fun learnings from that project on the dev side?
Literally everything I do is a learning experience. Especially now that I've started, a new job and everything, I learn something new every single day. And I definitely am not a JavaScript wizard or anything like that. I am what I would call a JavaScript hack. And I can see it and I can get into it. If I have a demonstration of something in front of me, I can figure it out. I know lots of incredibly talented, front end developers who I'm just in complete awe of. And I could never do, I'm sure I could do what they do. There's my confidence speaking again. I could do what they do if I really wanted to.
Right.
But, I really love the email side of things too.
I'm the exact same way. And it's I could have learned JavaScript, but I just learned how to become a really good Googler, right? Instead. So it's just endless Stack Overflow and code pens and
so a lot of what I do is me trying to figure out how to hack things together, which again, I learn something every single time. But yeah, definitely don't want to say that I'm a JavaScript expert or anything. So I'm definitely not.
No, that's cool. And again, that, that just goes to show everybody can't feel bad or let imposter syndrome get you down too much, because literally no matter how long you've been in the sort of the dev side of things, especially, you're still Googling things that you should memorize by now. Right. So,
yeah.
And then did you also work on the email dog club, the pixel art generator?
Yeah. So that's almost a blur. I think that that was also a Chris Vasquez, brainchild, but I think that we did some weird attempt at marketing that somehow. It's kind of goofy, but it was really fun. I know I made the moon. Remember the moon memes with the goofy wolf? I made the one that looked like that in there. There's a little gallery of different dogs you can pick from. Yeah. So it's a WYSIWYG kind of or visual editor tool to create pixel art for emails, which is really awesome. And
I think it's great because obviously it's a finite amount of space. You're not letting people do like an entire email. That'd get out of hand. So it's easy enough for people to get into and do small, simple things, which is always, again, just an important point for listeners. Using pixel art is a great way to optimize images off you, or a fun way. Especially if you have maybe more of a visual product. Like I was so lucky when I worked at Litmus, I didn't have to worry about accessibility as much because you literally had to see things to use our product. So I was able to, do more fun things visually like that. So definitely take advantage of that. And yeah, this was a really fun generator. This any project like this, like I said, it's a learning experience, right? And it's like it could be like the dumbest, weirdest idea, but just do it. Yeah. So one of the interesting things I'd like to talk about with you is you're involved with some volunteer and charity work. So can you talk to me about some of the organizations and programs sort of you're involved with, how you got involved with them and sort of your contributions to them?
Yeah, so I work with both Tech Girls and Chick Tech, and I'm really fortunate that I got the connections to those at aWeber. aWeber was constantly looking at like different community events and things like that we could participate in. They have a beautiful building, so they love to host events there and have people come. So I think I started with a few Chick Tech volunteer like opportunities where I was just kind of like a teaching assistant. And I would definitely say that that's another thing where a lot of people feel like, well, like, I don't know this well enough, or like, I don't understand the certain technology, so I can't volunteer. You 100% can, because a lot of times people need help with like very simple things, or, you're sitting there with these girls learning with them. So definitely look out for these types of opportunities to even just like kind of be in the room as a volunteer, because there's so much to learn from even like the kids in the room. But I've definitely hosted workshops, and I've taught girls about email design and development, which has been awesome. I've gotten to sit on panels and talk about my career and, kind of like my backstory as to how I've gotten here. And that really resonates with young people, and they need to hear our stories, and they need, to hear diverse stories.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think anytime we can give back in sort of that way, we need it. And I think especially, at least for us, from the email perspective, like I want to help raise the first generation of people who grow up saying, I want to be an email designer. I want to be an email developer. Yes. I think we were kind of the first generation to where that happened on the website, but I think we're just in a place now to where there's enough people, there's a strong enough community in the email world to help like do that and create that. Yeah. So that's like one of my like internal missions that I want to help with. And this is a great way. I personally, I haven't done it yet, and I need to. I'm kind of slacking, but I want to do kind of similar with that, but with like my own local school back home, like grade school, to like help just teach young kids just like basics of HTML and CSS, right? What's it like having to work with kids, or how you teach them about things like this? Well, I think the first thing is that kids are so much smarter than people give them credit for, and they are so ridiculously creative, but also like kids now are so aware, and it's crazy like how aware they are of other people, and wanting to understand diversity, and wanting to make sure they're inclusive, and like just being around that is so inspiring. So really, I always just try to keep it real with like anyone I talk to. So for me, when I'm working with kids, I try to treat them the same way I would treat any person, and then really just try to help them open up and allow themselves to be creative, and allow them to make mistakes, and let them know that that's okay. And like, we do that. I do that. I still don't know what I'm doing sometimes, and that's okay. So I think like that's my biggest part of, getting to work with kids, is just being real and making sure they understand that like it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to be creative and have like really crazy, weird ideas. That's really cool. So Tech Girls and Chick Tech, are those local to your area, or do they have like local chapters, but they're all over the place. So definitely, if you're interested, look them up. And, obviously there's lots of women volunteers, but
anyone can volunteer. We've had, both women and men volunteer at these events. And like I said, it's really important for people to get that diversity and to, have different types of adults that come from different backgrounds and have different work experience talking to them.
Very cool. So I'd love to end just asking a few questions on some of your favorites. So what is your favorite email that you've ever designed / built?
Okay, so these are so hard for me to answer. So if anyone knows me at all, picking favorites is like one of the hardest things for me to do, because I have so many like, well, I like this because of this reason and this because of that reason. But I think for my favorite email I ever designed or built, I would have to say I created a email template called Survey when I was at aWeber. And it's super plain and simple. It like doesn't really look like much. But the reason I really liked it was that I built in these components for people to be able to do like an NPS survey or like a sentiment, like happy face, sad face. There's a few different options in there. And the reason I liked that was because a lot of our customers were not marketers. They were not super savvy. They really didn't know which direction to go in when they were making their emails. So I liked when I designed things that kind of like guided people into like this is a thing I can do, or this is a thing I can do, but I can actually do it because the tool is sitting right in front of me and they don't need to like figure out how to do it. Because sometimes it's a rabbit hole. Somebody's like, oh, I saw this cool thing. I want to implement it. And now I have to get this service, and now I need this product, and now I need to design this thing.
Right.
So I think I love that for that reason. Again, I think that's kind of like my customer service side speaking.
Yeah.
But I love designing things that kind of like push people in a direction subtly where they're like, oh, this is a thing that I can accomplish and I can do, and I'm able to get like valuable results from it.
Yeah. That's really cool. And I think the NPS and email, I mean, you can have your own separate NPS email, that campaign that you send, but I think the down to each individual email of whether you like the email or not, I think is a really fascinating concept, and I've seen others do it, but I haven't done it for anything yet. I would love to, I mean, I should just do it with my own emails, obviously, but I would love to, obviously with the brand case, I'd love to do that more and experiment with that more. I think it's an interesting concept for email.
It's amazing. When I worked at aWeber, we put a sentiment in every single email we sent. And when we started doing that, it changed the way that we even like were communicating with our customers, because we look at emails being like a two-way street, but it's really not a lot of times, especially from brands. Like brands don't expect people to respond to them. That was our invitation to say, please talk to us. Please let us understand what you're feeling right now. And it was really cool. And if we ever accidentally sent out an email that didn't have that widget in it, we were like, where's the sentiment widget? Like, we're never going to know how people feel about this. But it made us make a lot of better decisions.
That's really cool. So definitely think about that for your own emails. So what's your favorite email that you've actually ever received in your inbox? Singular email.
I thought about this a lot, and I'm sure that there's other favorites, but when I thought back to like, when do I remember sitting in front of my computer being like super excited? I think it was one of the Litmus live emails, I guess, back when it was the email design conference, maybe back in like 2015, because I can still remember myself. I can remember like what it was like outside. And I remember sitting there looking at it being like, this is so cool. And I think also it was just like that feeling that there was a whole bunch of other people that were like me experiencing that at that moment. So it wasn't even necessarily like the email itself. It was like what it did, if that makes sense. The vibe that I got from it. Yeah.
And so are you talking about the Twitter feed one?
I think that might have been it. Yeah.
All right, cool. So I'm totally going to split that clip up, and like, I'm not trying to make it about like a brag about me, but to showcase how email can be this emotional vehicle for people. Like, you can really make people feel something. Like that clip of you just explaining, like you literally went back in time. Like that just goes to show the power of email. And
right.
Like, that's what I think we all as email designers, and I like to use the term email design to stress the design strategy part, which I think kind of gets left out of email a lot nowadays.
Yes.
Especially because, sure, there's a lot of cool hacks on the dev side and everything, but the design strategy, like that's how we should be aiming to make people feel every single email that we send.
Yes.
So that's a really cool story. And yeah, I mean, I guess thank you, because I was fortunate to be a part of that experience. So
I think too, the more, like, obviously there was a lot of dev work that went into that, but I think, you know, the more I get into, like, the deeper I get into my career, the more I'm like, we don't need to do this crazy shit. Like, let's make it good. Like, let's give people what they want.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that speaks to that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, somebody who, I mean, obviously I sort of specialize in doing the crazier things in email and more interactivity stuff nowadays. It is definitely a conversation constantly where it's like, you know what? You can just strip it back and
like,
focus.
Do we need to do this?
Yep. So then final one. So what's your favorite overall newsletter that you subscribe to that you love getting into your inbox?
So this one, it's not, I feel like a lot of people have like email design related ones, but I think the email that I get the most excited to get is from a newsletter called Them. There's a website called them.us. And I think that they use like their pre-header text as like your weekly roundup of the queerest things on the internet. And it is the most amazing newsletter. And there's, you know, all different writers, but it basically highlights the LGBTQ plus community. And if you are an ally of the community, if you're part of the community, or if you're just like, I want to understand this more, it is like the coolest newsletter to read, and some very touching and just amazing articles to read. So that is my favorite. I look forward to getting it every time. I'm super excited to see what's in it. So definitely check that out. So
is that like a curated newsletter where they collect articles from around the web, or is it a publication?
They're like a publication.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So them.us.
Yes.
You can check that out.
And they're a pretty simple design, but it's really pretty. I really like it. Well,
again, it goes back to the thing where it doesn't always have to be like the design itself. If the content's good enough, or you present the content in the right light, sometimes that's what you need to let shine.
Yep. And they do that. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Kim, thank you so much for taking the time to come on today. This has been a great interview. There's some really great sound bites I can't wait to slice up here. And you also, I have to say, everybody, can we give Kim the award for best interior design of any guest I've had? So this is the gold standard that all future guests have to live up with, your Yule log and just this perfectly looking place. But do you have anything that you'd like to plug, like any websites or links, anything out there?
I would just say, if you were on the verge of wanting to take on some contract work, please reach out to me, or go on Spot for Pardot, reach out to Andrea, because you can do it. You are awesome, and we would love to work with you. Awesome. Well, I've had your Twitter handle displaying down below this whole interview, so you can follow Kim there. But thank you so much. And that's been the show. You can subscribe, kevinmandeville.com/newsletter, get shows delivered to your inbox. We go live every Tuesday, Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern time, and support the program by buying some Email Tees swag, emailtees.com, @emailtees on Twitter and Instagram. All right. We'll see you next time, Email Geeks. See ya. Bye. Go.